Hi, I'm Carolyn Bouchard-Hunt of CC Yates, and I'm here to talk to you about tough plants that can handle the heat. Right now I'm out at the county building. It is 8 in the morning and over 80 degrees already, and I'm going to run through some of the plants that we planted along the building that have really held up to the heat and drought of this summer. They're great options for home gardens, especially if you don't want to spend your whole summer watering. They can also tolerate wetter conditions, but really thrive in these hot, dry summers. So let me get started on some of the species. Here's one of the first ones. This one's a little bit of a small one. I want to point out that none of these plants have received any water this summer at all besides what's fallen from the sky, which has been maybe a ½ inch over the last 3 weeks. They're planted between a brick wall, as you can see, and a sidewalk. So they get very hot, very dry. Agastachi, which is also called hummingbird mint, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of, is a fantastic plant for situations like this. This is a smaller species in the Kudos series. These plants flower usually from June all the way till frost, and in great years they'll just be covered with blossoms. You can see they have these wonderful spikes. You can get ones with really large spikes or these kind of smaller ones. The Kudos series is pretty nice because it's also powdery mildew resistant, which is can be a problem in wetter years. Another Agastachi. It hasn't bloomed yet, but this is a really nice one. They can be quite large. This one's about 2 feet tall, and when it starts flowering, it'll probably be about 3 to 6 inches taller than that. So they're nice, full plants. They die right down to the ground in the winter, which is great in this location because they get snow plowed on them all winter. The sidewalks are salted. These plants can put up with anything. Another favorite plant of mine for kind of these hell strips, which they're commonly called because the conditions are so brutal, are daylilies. Daylilies are really tough, wonderful plants. This is an older variety called lemon lily. You can't smell it, unfortunately, but it has the most delightful lemony fragrance. It perfumes the sidewalk when you walk by and the flowers are open. It has a fairly long bloom time. It is not a rebloomer, but there are a few of these fragrant daylilies out there, and I really think they're worth seeking out because it adds an extra dimension. Again, it's quite tall, so with the flower spikes, it's probably 4 feet tall, so you can really add some depth and dimension to your bed. But there's a lot of great daylilies out there, and in fact, you know, we have great daylily breeders in Yates County, so you can find some really unique varieties. Places like Grace Gardens and any of the good nurseries around here have some fantastic varieties. You can really do some different things with daylilies and lengthen the season by getting different varieties that flower earlier and later. Another favorite that you all probably have heard of and probably grow, but you know, sometimes people I don't think take as much of advantage of them as they can because they come in a lot of different forms are sedum. So this is Madrona sedum or matron sedum. I think it's Madrona sedum. This right now, it's a nice full form. It dies down to the ground in the fall. You cut off anything that's dead. It comes back in the spring, and it stays really nice and green looking all summer. And then late summer, you know, in a few weeks from now, once we get to August, you can see the flowers are starting to pink up a little bit. But this will become a mass of flowers, and it's a great late season pollen source and nectar source for bees and other pollinators. So it'll be a very active plant. I really enjoy seeing all sorts of insects around my plants. It just sort of adds another bit of life to the border. Next to it is another variety. I think this is called Cherry Swizzler. This one's starting to open already. I really like these darker sedums too. But sedums come in all sorts of, as you can see, different heights, sizes, growth patterns. They all have those kind of lovely succulent leaves that sort of add a coolness to the border. But you can get them in variegated, you know, kind of yellows and greens, pink flowers, all sorts of things, and creeping ones. So if you want to fill in, instead of where we have a lot of weeds coming in that I'm just about to take care of after this, if I had a creeping sedum, it would really fill in those areas and I wouldn't get quite as much weed pressure. This is another one. This is a short-lived perennial. This is called Gilardia or blanket flower. So it comes in, you can get in this kind of yellow color. It also comes in this really pretty orange color and some variations in between. This is not a long-lived plant, but when it's going, it flowers like crazy. It flowers till it kills itself almost. It is quite drought tolerant. It is obviously not as drought tolerant as some of the other plants. You can see it's got a little bit more stress, but you can see how many spent flowers there are. And these have fertile seeds. These are also a native plant, which is kind of nice, and they'll reseed. And reseed nicely. You can move the seedlings around. They're not rude. You can pull them up if you don't want any more, but they'll stay pretty close to the plant. So even though it's not a long-lived plant, it will reseed itself and keep growing. Oh, and there's another little Agastachi seedling right there. This is a variety called Kudos Mandarin, and it has not performed quite as well in the border as the other Kudos. Or blue boa, which is the other larger variety I showed you, but it's quite nice, and it shows a little bit of the variation. If you can see, it has a really soft orange flower. Agastachi comes in a bunch of different colors, mostly yellows and pinks, corals, and kind of blues and purples. But I still really recommend it, especially if you give your plants even a little bit of water. As I said, these guys have had no water this season, and everything's been in the ground since August. I planted this border August of 2018, late August, mid-September. So nothing has been here that long. But as you can see, if you see the whole border, it's quite full. Ignore the weeds, I'm just about to get to them. But you can build a really big established border pretty quickly with these plants. They're quite tough and they grow fast. Well, as I said, I've got a bunch of weeding to get to now, so it was great to talk to you. If you have any questions on plants that need to grow in hard, tough places, you've got a lot of options. Feel free to contact me via email at cb239@cornell.edu or through the Cornell CC Yates Facebook page. Thanks and have a great summer.